And then I think go live, setting up your webinar, because I know that there's a delay. The other times that I've seen people do this, you've always seen them like talking to each other on Facebook, and they're like, "Oh, we're live." So cool. Hold on, let me just double check this.
I'm gonna open up FaceBrain as well and see what's going on.
Yeah, we're live. Cool, bro.
For 20 seconds, looks like. Yeah,
I've been live for 20 entire seconds.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm going to attempt. I'm going to ask. I've asked if we can wrap this up in the next 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, I'm gonna see. I'm gonna ask for 30 if that's feeling good.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's totally cool. I can help my wife get the baby into the.
I got a hot dinner waiting out there for me, and
a hot dinner. It's gonna be like lukewarm.
Right
on. What's everybody doing today? So Dustin and I are hopping on this. Oh, let me hit record.
Yeah, you don't want to lose anything great. The rare chance that it might happen.
Okay, we're recording.
Sweet.
All right, sweet. Hey man, your wall looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, it was like this really crazy pattern last week. Is it the same spot you were sitting in last week?
Different wall.
Okay, cool.
This is a room in the back of my house that I scrambled to get to make our appointment.
Nah, I dig it. I like that.
The other room that we were in is kind of falls under the hashtag do weird shit. Is a shed that we kind of converted into like my girlfriend calls it a me shed, and so it's like when we need me time, it's pretty relaxing in there.
You guys, you're not in the spot that I know right now, right? You guys are in a new spot.
Yeah, we moved out of the city, man. Couldn't handle it anymore.
Okay, sweet. I get it. Cool. So for everybody listening at home, for all of our probably 2 viewers, Dustin and I are going to talk about, it was Dustin's idea to talk about do weird shit, like kind of weird stuff that we do. And I don't know, like, where do you want to start? This is good stuff. Like, I really like this topic because I think us as a culture, we all in our own respective spaces do stuff that we probably think everybody thinks is going to be weird. But then when we share it, we're like, oh my goodness, I totally do that same thing. And so it's just, it's so interesting. So I'm excited to get into this and talk about whatever it is we're going to talk about. And yeah, what you got?
Man,
what do you want to start?
I think it'd be interesting maybe to start with some questions. I'm curious, what kind of weird shit that you do to like get into a flow state? I know that like when you're online doing your internet campaign, you know, your beingness, your presence, you get into like a really nice flow state. I'm just kind of curious what I know you do something weird. You're a weird guy.
Oh, you mean if I hop on Facebook Live?
I lost
man. Here, just let me know when you got me back.
I got you back.
Okay, sweet. So for me, for a long time when I was first getting into this, like getting out of the Navy. So a couple of years ago, I started my business and wanted to work with people and wanted my boss's name to be my name. And you have all these people that have done it before and they're like, this is the best way. You got to do this. You got to wake up every day and post to Facebook at the exact same time. You got to have a morning routine. You got to do it the same every day. My flow state is to ignore that as much as I can.
Right on.
To ignore it as much as I can. And when you see me hop on Facebook Live, it's probably because within the last 5 minutes of me pressing live, I was like, I should do a Facebook Live video. And it's never prepared. It's never planned. It's always really kind of random. I schedule a whole bunch of stuff. Me talking to myself on the computer, I never plan because it's not something that it's not something that I'm able to schedule. Yet when I feel motivated and inspired, I feel I'm able to talk when I have something to talk about. And then when I just allow myself to be in that space. And so that would be the weird thing, just to kind of like let it be, to stop attempting to follow so many rules and just be with it. And so, yeah.
That is pretty weird though. I mean, considering most people aren't willing to go even there with as far as not paying attention to the rules and following this prescribed narrative, whatever that might be.
What about you? What's your flow weirdness thing other than jumping in like frigid cold water?
Instead of freezing. Interesting, man. I just for me, it's mostly about playing with my physiology and sort of tricking my physiology to back up my mental play.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say probably the most interesting thing, weird thing that I do with regards to that would be going long periods of time, or maybe long periods by some standards, without food or water. So
Okay.
not necessarily all the time. However, going 24 hours without food or 48 hours without food, it does something really cool to my brain. So the way that I use this is before workshops,
Mm-hmm.
I'll set it up so that when I start my workshop, I'm around 20 hours without food. And so I had my last meal was about 20 hours ago. So that's when I hit my performance apex on a computation level. I'm super sharp. So I think that's pretty weird though.
I don't know. I do intermittent fasting. I eat from about noon till about 7 every day.
I remember watching you talk
and so when you talk about, so the thing for me that I really like about it is that by the time I'm ready to eat, it feels like everything has exited my body, all that other stuff. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I can feel, and I feel super, my body's not thinking about anything. It's well, I guess we can go clean these corners up over here, metaphorically in my body. They're well, I guess there's no more shit to process. So let's just go do. So I feel almost every single day, my body's completely able to clean. So allowing that an extra 8 hours, that makes perfect sense that does that to me. So I think me and you're going to trade stuff that other people may think are weird. It's not even I'm just yeah, man, that sounds normal. This is how I live my life. And every once in a while, I'd say probably about once a month, I'll go nearly a day without eating, just because I'll just be I'll wake up one day and be oh, I just feel so whatever, and I just let it all get out. Just drink lots and lots and lots of water. I know there's some people you do the lemon juice or the cayenne pepper and they want to do some. I just do water, just water.
Nothing is good.
Yeah, nothing.
Black coffee is also.
Black coffee, that helps. That exits. It motivates the cleaning period to get that all out of there. So, right on.
Go ahead.
No, that's it. That's all I got from that. So
I think that this thing that we're starting here playing around with, I think this is pretty weird.
This is pretty weird.
Pretty weird. But I think it's super cool, and
I dig it.
I'm really interested in the opportunity to kind of explore just a lot of my own ways of communication, and I think it's cool, man. This network and this platform of being able to reach people is very I don't know, it's never happened in human history before.
Yeah. Lauren, I think if you're still watching, this is one of the guys that I'd be really interested in plugging into Lauren Stark is a friend of mine. She lives in San Francisco. She actually lives near you. And her and I were having a conversation last week about putting some sort of kind of like a TED event, except instead of just speakers across the board, just more creative people just wanting to share whatever it is they're sharing, kind of like a sharing platform, and just motivating people to be open and be seen, allowing themselves to be seen, allowing themselves to be heard, and just kind of holding that space where it's kind of really accepted. Because I think I don't know. Yeah, it's just something. So yeah, you're definitely on the list. Her and I just had this conversation last week sometime. So if she's still there, oh yeah, Lauren, she's definitely still there. So this is Dustin, Lauren, meet Dustin. I'll introduce you guys later. And so another one of the weird things that McCare and I do, we sleep in separate beds.
Yes, I've heard people get into this.
Yeah, we've and I have friends that sleep in separate rooms. And I remember thinking, because I think years and years ago, in my past relationships that were all not good and compared to the standards as I'm having now,
sure,
I was always under this assumption, oh, you guys sleep in separate beds, oh, there must be no sex, or there must be no intimacy, so your relationship must be terrible. Since McCare and I, we still sleep in the same room, but we just have 2 beds and they're right next to each other. Ever since we gave ourselves that space, everything has just been, I don't know, it's just that it feels more free when you have your own space and you have your own things. And I think I want to kind of move into, it's polyamory. I use a different word for it during the week.
Community?
Anyways. No, it was just allowing ourselves to have that space, not only in where we sleep, but metaphorically allowing ourselves to have space in the relationships that we keep and the things that we discuss in these relationships. Is like something that McCara and I were talking about we had 5 hours to ourselves this last Saturday morning. Charlie was with friends. Yeah, it was pretty rare. So that was weird for us. And it turned out that we were alone for almost 5 hours with no kids. And we ended up just talking about kids the whole time, how we want to raise our kids, how we want to school them. What do we want to do for them so that they can be successful? And then what does success for them mean for us?
Mm-hmm.
And so
I want to not imprint what I think success means on them.
For sure.
To be their own version of it.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing that we noticed is that even though our kids were gone, we were still focused on them.
Mm-hmm.
And how I have relationships like this so that I can have conversations that aren't about my children. And she has relationships with men and women both, where she can have conversations that aren't about the children, because it's just, once you bring us together, like that's just a focus. And so it's just like kind of allowing each other that space to do that and practicing not being insecure about it and just understanding that's like is what it is. And I know you have a more intense practice of that, and I'd be super stoked to hear about it. I wonder, monogamish.
The monogamy, that's where you're at, right? Monogamish, I would say then, like sort of.
Monogamish, like sexually, it's just McCara and I, but then I have, I'd say probably a half a dozen to a dozen people, depending on the time of people. What I have very, very deep and intense, emotional and like content-based relationships with, where we share really, really openly about certain things. But I think that's
really the only responsible, like on a human to human level, I think that's really the only responsible way to do monogamy, personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think
for sure.
Any other flavor of it where it's not, where you're not encouraged to not only create those relationships externally, but internally, because that's what it is, right? Every relationship with someone else is a relationship with yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
To not those because of some belief system is, I don't know, detrimental to your development as a human. So
detrimental. And I think it's like opens up pathways to abuse.
Totally.
And it starts expression and denial. Yeah, it starts there. It's like, you can't be talking to so-and-so and blah, 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 blah. It's just like, we get so insecure. And I always make that joke, like Eddie Murphy. No, it's not, when that Dave Chappelle skit, when Rick James is like, cocaine is a hell of a drug. It's like, insecurity is a hell of a drug. Like it's like the worst one. And, people can get really, really torn up on that stuff. So,
well, I think that, like, as far as working on that sort of thing goes, ethical non-monogamy, which is,
that's the word you used. Go for it.
Version is what you're talking about, where it's everyone knows what everyone else is doing for the most part, and everyone's in consent that they're okay with that. And so, like, that's the premise of it for it all to work. Mm-hmm. However, you still have these very, very superhuman experiences where you're like, oh man, this really hurt my feelings, or I have a egocentric response over someone being with someone else because it's triggering something in me. So in a monogamous relationship, or a monogamy land, I like to refer to it as, like, just textbook monogamy, that feeling often passed off as an expression of love, and it also gets passed off as something that's okay and never looked at. However, you're doing whoever's experiencing that, you're doing them a tremendous disservice by not looking at that, because underneath that is a belief system that they believe that's not necessarily in integrity with what's really real. Mm-hmm. And so without going there, you're not going to see it otherwise. You can just hide underneath it. And that's why I would say that non-monogamy, and like polyamory specifically, because it's more about love and less about everything else, it's been like the best personal growth experience that I could have ever asked for, because I've had to forcibly look at, like, what's behind that. Okay, man, like, I hear your feelings, they're okay. However, we gotta know where they're coming from, because we're not serving nobody right now.
Yeah, and I think I love that you say that, like, not. I think I'm not really letting this land, because this is meaningful to me.
Totally meaningful to me.
When you think of abuse, whether it's verbal, physical, or other, it's all, like, I believe, an attempt for one person to control the other person.
Totally.
And if we could just allow each other to express whatever it is, I think it's weird in our culture that free expression is weird. And I think, oh man, we could get into a really interesting conversation about all the free speech and how the pendulum has swung so far that, man, it's just so fascinating. I get caught up a lot on this. I watched a video from Jordan Peterson. I'm going to dip into some dangerous territory right now.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson's a dangerous guy.
Yeah, he's a dangerous guy, but I appreciate his points of view. How?
I said he's got some good ones.
Yeah, he does. But I think the one that's the biggest in the media today, especially with the university in Toronto where he teaches at, he's a professor of psychology at I think the University of Toronto, where there is a mandate, like a university law, where the teachers are required to call people by their preferred, whatever. And I don't have a problem. I have a client who's trans, and we have a huge discussion on it. I very much respect her pronouns, and I call her by her pronouns. However, to demand and write it down in doctrine that, hey, this is what you're required to say, I think sets a really dangerous precedent, because it's just like, first you have this freedom, and then that, like, what you're attempting to do by allowing somebody else a freedom, you're infringing in somebody else's. And I know that this is a very, very testy subject.
Totally.
It's just, yeah. And so it's just,
I think it creates an ugly imbalance, because there's no law that says that anyone has to call me a man. And I don't want that to be a law. I want anyone to be able to call me. If someone wants to call me whatever they want, I don't have any energy on it. Luckily, I'm a white man, privileged, so I'm allowed to feel that way, sort of. Right. I've got less energy on it just by what I look like.
Yeah, for sure.
However, putting it into law is an interesting. I don't know, man. I'm not necessarily for any crazy laws these days, but it seems like you're marginalizing a group of people by forcing another group of people to do a certain thing, which they ought to be doing anyway. If they're good humans, they'll respect what someone wants to be called, because it's just the right thing to do. I think I may have lost you.
Yeah, sure. I agree with you 100%. Especially, I lost you for a second. You got me back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, sweet. I think, I think it's perfect what you said, how you, by writing down doctrine to connect a certain group, you marginalize that group.
You expose them. Like,
you expose them.
Make it, else. And when they're not, they're just identifying how they want to identify, and like that's the end of it. And like, to make a bigger deal of it, it pushes everyone that's in the middle further out. So the people who aren't necessarily with it, and you can call them whatever they want, but they're entitled to have their opinions that they have, whatever those opinions might be. It's their right as a human being to have them, to formulate their own, no matter how volatile they may seem to us. It pushes that person who might cross the border one day into this situation, and by meeting someone, they'll come to the other side because they've learned more information. Like, you're pushing that person farther away from the middle, so it's harder to bring that person over. Yeah,
it's harder to cross that boundary too.
We want to create a culture where people just want to do this by nature. They want to support their fellow human by nature and honor what they want, right? But you can't force that on someone. You can just invite them into it, and forcing it on them just forces them further apart. And then these two groups are going to be more at war than they were without the terminology to begin with, which sucks. It's like adding fuel on fire.
Yeah, that's unnecessary, because fire's already raging.
Totally, man.
It's already raging.
Issue, but marginalizing the group doesn't seem like the right answer. But I have a unique perspective on it. I'm white male, and I'm straight, and I'm American.
Yeah, for sure.
It's super hard for me to really to go deep into perspective on that one. Like, I get it. Like, I connect with it on emotional and intellectual levels, but I don't connect with it here. You know what I mean? I'm straight and white in America. Real thing.
Yeah, it is. It is a real thing in San Francisco.
Yeah, I look like another guy in an Apple t-shirt, man.
Yeah, for sure.
But
it's really hard. And I think it's just like anything else, like we were talking about at the beginning, like, there is no wrong answer. There's no right answer. There's nothing, because it's so situational, it's so individualistic. And you have so many people sitting within their own homes, pointing outside of their house, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. But then you look behind them, and they're like their shit's all in turmoil, and then they don't want to pay attention to themselves. So it's fascinating the way that generally, or at least, you know, my perception sitting inside of my own home. It's really, really interesting.
I don't know, man. I think that the way to approach the problem is not with forcing anyone to do anything. It's you have to cultivate the mind and spirit, and like you get someone's heart involved, and then there's a chance, because at the end of the day, we're all like 99.9% the same anyway on a genetic level, and we're all pretty much going to die in X amount of time. And like at the end of the day, all the stats are really, really fucking close. And if you cultivate that inside of someone versus separating us into more groups, I think you have a chance at ending the whole racism thing, the whole sexism thing. Like it starts by bringing people together, not pushing people into more groups.
Yeah, for sure.
Really hard one, because got to be in a group to be heard. And I get that.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like that dichotomy, just like everything else.
Yep. How do you do it with love, though? That's the
yeah, for sure. Just how do you? Yeah.
All the world's problems if you figure that one out. Hopefully we get there in our lifetime.
Yeah. Well, it's like I ask myself, like, is that even possible?
Totally.
Just because, I mean, yes, I do believe that it is, but then once we solve that, like, do we break the system? Do we break this experience? Do we break the matrix that we're living in? Is that the purpose of us living here? Like getting to that point, and then like once the anomaly happens where like that problem becomes fixed, like is it like Agent Smith is spread through the entire system and it's taken everything over, and then it's like, okay, now we got to stop and then repopulate it. So it's fascinating to think from that mindset, like whether we were created and put here in this illusion, or machines put us in this illusion, or different versions of ourselves outside of this put us in the illusion. Because I believe to a certain extent, like the dichotomy, the argument that like puts, you know, like I think that's part of the thing that's, I don't know, it's
well, it goes all the way right down to like the most basic premise of existence, which is shadow and light. You know, basic of all things. Like this is what it could be boiled down to, and like that's the ultimate dichotomy. But the big joke is like the massive amount of world that's in between both of those spaces. So it's not really about dichotomy or duality. It's like this massive index of everything, which makes it so damn complicated. It's not just one or the other. It's not a polar thing.
No, I like that.
It doesn't exist, even though we want to make it exist.
Well, yeah, because I think if you look at the was talking, I don't know if Amber's still watching, but I think I was talking to her about this the other day. We were talking about the percentage of people who like genuinely hate you and want to do you harm, and then you have the percentage of people who, no matter what you do, just like love you unconditionally, and that may be 5% on either side, and then you have everybody else in between that's like, yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah,
doesn't even matter. Like it's whatever, you know. So, is it Charlie at the door?
I see that handle jiggling even.
She was jiggling. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
That's the point of these conversations. It was like, this is to interrupt life, man. Like they're getting philosophical on a Monday. Like this empowers us in a lot of weird ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Sets the normal and gets us talking and getting uncomfortable a little bit. I know for me, it's a little uncomfortable. You're pretty good at this stuff by now, though.
No, it's one of my favorite things when you say something that's super interesting to me, and then I want to respond, and then I'm just like, I'm not even able to say anything because my brain is just like, and I just love that because I can feel the boundaries being pushed, and I feel myself coming to the realization that it could either be A or B, yet it doesn't matter what the answer is. It just doesn't even matter. It's just like
in philosophy, man. You're getting there.
Yeah. It's just like pushing towards that space more and more of finding out like, oh, well, should I go right or left? It doesn't freaking matter, because whatever direction you turn, contextually, it's no judging it at all. And if I turn left and then I go like this, like there's another right and left. It's always the same way. You're always looking the same way. You're always the same way. There's no such thing as wrong or right. Like it's just it's whatever you do and whatever you don't do. And it's really just whatever you do, because don't do doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's not even a real thing.
It's not even a real thing.
Don't knock the cup off the table. That doesn't even make sense. It's not a real
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't even make sense.
It's a
So, yeah.
combination of a negative outcome. Like, just don't use the word. It's just, it's hard to take out. It's easy to.
It's extremely hard to take out. Yet, when you really allow, like, when you just let it go, even if it's for a second, you're just like, huh. And we find ourselves falling. Yeah, we're paused again.
We lost you.
Internet connection is unstable.
You should go back to that.
What was I talking about?
You were talking.
What was I talking about? So one of the things that I notice, and this is one of the things I talk about with my clients, and like the goal with working with people for any duration of time is just the letting go of whatever it is you're holding on to. Some people want to grab onto more wealth. Some people want to have more relationships, or they want to, whatever they're attempting to grab onto to enrich their lives. And I just encourage people to just, the more you can actually let go of, the more that stuff is just there. You know, it's like when you're like the illustration of like holding sand in your hand and it sits there, but the second you attempt to close yourself on it, it all just goes away. And so the goal for anybody who's watching this and your practice to let go and be free of whatever it is that's binding you to this place is to practice increasing the duration in which you are triggered to this world. And then when you find yourself triggered, practice noticing that, oh, I'm currently triggered, and then just, you know, decreasing the duration of which you grab onto this headphone case. And I have the headphone. Yeah.
You could also use a more empowering word instead of triggered. So that's what we were talking about. We were talking about don't as being a negative affirmation of something. So I go back to that. You said, I feel triggered. You could say, I feel activated, because what's really happening is you process information. Your limbic system on a cascade of physiological greatness that really is super serving in the right environment, not so serving in this very unreal world we live in. Since you want a cascade of all these things, and you feel and you think, and then all these other stories come together and they just puke out this totally manufactured, scariest case scenario, right?
Yeah.
You become more powerful. Oh, my system's been activated. My horse is kicking. I gotta calm down.
I love that. Activated. Lauren says that's a locked on word.
It's a good one. It's just nice, nice to speak in an empowering sense. And that's what I was going to talk about taking the word don't out, or at least paying attention when you use the word don't, is because it forces you to become more clever with your speech. And you start to notice over a period of time, at least I did, that I was drawing a more empowering way of speaking. So I was looking for opportunities like keep the cup on the table is a super small, simple example. One of the earliest ones I learned, instead of don't knock the cup off, keep the cup on the table, like speak what you want, positive affirmation. And in doing that, it's like I just speak to people with such in a better way. And it really works for leadership. And I think it's nice.
I dig it. I dig it. I dig it. Any viewers, you guys got any questions about anything weird? Anything we're talking about, anything you guys want us to touch? We've got about another 5 minutes on here till we hop off. We'll be on here again next week. Dustin and I are going to meet up every week, Monday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, just to talk about whatever it is we feel like talking about.
The madness.
Yeah, the madness. And so, man, I dig it. I appreciate you being here, homie.
Monday's a good day, man, because it's like,
yeah, I like it.
It's hard to things on a Monday. It's nice to have this one locked in. Start my week with a little bit of time with my philosopher homie right here.
Yeah, for sure. So Aaron just commented, he says words matter. And so Dustin and I have been having that exact conversation for about 4 years?
Yeah, pretty much since we met, man.
Yeah, since we met.
Real.
And one of them, we did it separate times. We did this, I think I'll hop on here when I get right back.
Are you back?
Let me know when you got me back.
Got you
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, cool. So Dustin and I played this game. I think I did it. It was almost 2 years ago. Dustin did his probably 3 years ago, where we went 90 days without saying the words but, try, or can't. And this was 2 years ago that I went through this exercise, and to this day, those words still feel, I notice it. Like they don't, it's not wrong or right. It's just, I definitely notice it when I say them. And when I do say them, it's very, very intentional when I say them now. And so after we had both done this exercise, Dustin and I furthered this conversation by adding stuff like good or bad or right or wrong or thank you and you're welcome.
Should is a huge one for me. Wow.
Should is a huge one for me. And I actually just got off the phone with a friend of mine, Nina, before I was like on my way here to talk to you. And she did this Facebook post. One of her mentors is like, she's like, well, how do you do this? He's like, I'm just making it up as I go, you know? And she's like, are you serious? She's like, you control billions of dollars of revenue, like in what you're over your umbrella. He's like, yeah, whatever. I'm just, it's just a different scale. It's all the same, you know, like the layers is just different. And so it's one of those things. So should is really good. And I really like that you brought up that word activated versus triggered. I'm going to add that to my list of things to check in with and kind of play around with. I really dig that a lot because it really is those triggers. Yeah. And because it's those triggers, that activation where we have the opportunity to learn the most about ourselves. And if, you know, what more can we do in this life, and then learn and allow ourselves to be, and then, you know, take this opportunity to connect with each other like we're doing now, say, hey, this is what I learned today. What do you think? You know, and then just see, like, let that centrifuge like start to spin and what it separates and what else you can find from that. And then take that new substance and dig into that.
That's 1 + 1 = 3, man. We're just making.
Heck yeah, dude. Yeah.
I have one more question before I let you go.
Do it.
And then I volunteer in a question. I'm curious what word you use intentionally out of the BCTs. Which one are you like, I'm using this word intentionally? Because I have one that I use very intentionally. I use it often. However, the other two aren't. So I very, very rarely use one.
I very, very rarely use try. I very, very rarely use can't. But is the one that I intentionally use.
I'm curious about your reason. I wonder if it's the same.
No, well, try, because try, it's like, hey, Dustin, try to stand up right now. Like it doesn't, like that one's like, I'm unable to get around the fact that it means literally nothing. I'm unable to get around that. So it's like,
that's your mind up for a fail. It's like,
yeah. Can't. I think I usually say I'm not currently able to whatever, or I'm not able to right now, or I have a different priority, because those two things are always more true for me, unless it's like, hey, can you go, you know, lift your car up over your head? Like, well, but even at the same time, I'm not able to do that right now. Like, I'm just not able to, because I could go get a tractor or a crane and I could still do that. So it's like, there's always something that's more true, whether it's personal truth or, but then the but, I usually say yet, because I just feel it feels a little more, I don't know, but it's just, but for me, when I was first doing the thing, I found it was like a replacement for It was like a thinking word almost.
It was for me as well.
So we're waiting before we got back. Okay, cool. I think so Lauren says use and instead of but, which is definitely something Dustin and I definitely, and or however. Right. So, but I think it's probably,
I think there's a really intelligent way that you can use but, and I use it like, I definitely use it unintentionally throughout my speech because it's really woven in there. However, I often use it very intentionally. I'll say something, blah, 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 and then I'll go, but, and I'll like emphasize it. It'll be a little bit louder than all the other things. And it's because it means it basically just invalidates everything I just said. So like, I said all this stuff,
for sure,
invalidated, now this.
Right.
Like that.
So it's an intentional thing. Like you're intentionally, I hear you that for sure. Yeah, I think that's probably, it's rare. And most of the time I do it, it's when I'm writing. So it's like I was like, B-U-T, brah. And I think it's probably for something really similar. So, right on.
Brah.
Yeah. Cool, man. Good times.
Nice, concise visit. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Right on, dude. I appreciate it. I will see you next week. If anybody's listening to this on the replay, I know it's the end of the video, so you're probably not going to catch this part if you're not already listening to this. We're going to start posting these to a YouTube channel, so it's just there. And yeah, I'll post it to mine. I can send you the video if you want to post it to yours as well, D. And if anybody has any questions about things that they would like us to talk about next week, let us know. We're going to start to, this is going to be kind of like our web show that we're going to just do once a week, whenever. And we're open to talk about literally anything.
Yeah, my goal is to approach things that are difficult to talk about so I can practice.
Like, this wasn't weird. That's just what we talk about.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
You look super high.
For sure. For sure.
You're back.
Yep, you talked really fast for a second. So, all right, brother. We'll talk to you next week. And thanks. We actually had a bunch of people hang out with us today. That was awesome.
Sweet deal.
Cool. Yep. I'll catch you later, bro. See ya.